Meeting at 4:15 p.m. this Thursday, July 12, 2018, at City Hall Conference Council Chambers. We have a presentation for the Santa Cruz County Multi-Jurisdictional Hazard Mitigation Plan of 2018. And Mr. Sayers, if you'll just go ahead and state your name and tell it, you can give us a, well, I guess everybody heard what you're here for, so I guess you can go ahead. We're all familiar with you now.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My name is Ray Sayer. I'm the Director of Emergency Management for Santa Cruz County here. So, and this is my assistant, Sabina Castro. Sunday's going to be 1 year with. Some questions for him, or he can fill in the gaps as well.
We're all here. The ones that are going to be here.
Can we start?
Yeah. Vice Mayor Nogales, welcome.
Thank you.
We're just starting our study session meeting.
Yeah.
Mr. Sayers just walked up and is very
Mr. Sayers, good afternoon.
Happy to meet you, sir. So.
Marcel, how are you, Chief? So, did we get started? Were you talking? I'm sorry.
I'm 15 seconds in, sir. You're
okay.
Perfect timing.
Sorry for the interruption.
Oh, no, not a problem. So I understand you have a council meeting tonight, and you're potentially going to adopt the 2018 multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan. So what I would like to do is just kind of give you, as non-emergency manager people, what is this plan, a little bit of the executive overview of what it's all about, why we do this, that sort of thing. Okay, so let me start off with for the basic tenets of emergency management. And there's 4 phases to any emergency. And the first is mitigation. The second is preparedness, then there's response, and then there's recovery. Most of the time we're focusing on the response. Well, let's go all the way back to the mitigation. Mitigation is really identifying what kind of hazards are in the community so that we can prepare our plans and our equipment based on what those predicted hazards are going to be, for example, right? So within emergency management, the foundation piece is the mitigation to identify the risks and hazards, and that drives the rest of the process all the way through response and recovery. So what a multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan is, and I say multi-jurisdictional because it's funded from my office by a grant. So we've paid for professional services to help us write the plan. By multi-jurisdictional, it includes Patagonia, the city of Nogales, and incorporated areas within Santa Cruz County. So that's the multi-jurisdictional component of the plan. So it's a FEMA requirement that we have a hazard mitigation plan. And it's required for really 3 different grant processes that you're probably familiar with. One would be flood mitigation. The other is pre-disaster mitigation. And the third is a hazard mitigation. So there's these grant processes that occur within FEMA, but it all starts with this foundation piece. Unless you've had this foundation piece, you're not going to be eligible for these other federal grants. Understood? So a mitigation plan has to be updated periodically. And FEMA has set the requirement in 5 years. county that have occurred, and let's update that plan through a process that we go through. So we developed this planning process, and it's very wide sweeping, and I'll get into a little more detail in each section as we go. But we want all segments of the community involved in the planning process, not just emergency managers. I want fire chiefs, I want police officers, I want faith-based, I want elected officials, I want radio, television, I want laypersons involved. So we bring this whole segment of the community together into a process. And this is in the introduction of the book. So the process is described. We look at the community. What is the description? What is the population? What are the climatics? What's the water flow? Perhaps Mexico has done something else and done another retention basin, and now our community would change because something has occurred there. So we need to describe what the community is within the planning process. We need to do the risk assessments. What are the things that we are concerned with that can create emergency events within the community? And I'll get into more detail on that. And then finally, what's the mitigation strategy? How do we, if we've identified something that we're concerned with that poses a risk to the community, how do we mitigate it? We can do that through plans, through exercises, we can do that through structural things. So that's kind of an overview of what really the plan is about. So I'll try not to be too long. So let's go to the planning process first.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
Just
Absolutely.
to clarify something that I read on this executive summary here, because I'm just kind of confused about this plan here. It says, the plan must be fully updated and receive FEMA's approval prior to the 5-year expiration date of October 11th, 2016. Is this the plan that's supposed to be done by 2016, or is this something different?
Okay, that's an excellent question. What happens is the process occurs, the plan is configured, and it has to match a federal CMPG guideline. There's a specific guideline that goes on that. Then it is submitted to state emergency management for review. The review process occurs there, and we did a really good job. And then it's eventually submitted to FEMA, and then there's an extensive review process that occurs there. And they had nothing really to say about our plan, like, good job, you've got it nailed on the first thing. So the plan is written, but it's really not in effect until it's adopted by the jurisdictional entity. So it's been adopted by Santa Cruz County, it's been adopted by Patagonia, but it has yet to be adopted by you as a council person. So it's not in effect. So at this point, the plan's written, but you haven't recognized it as the FEMA planning tool. Did that answer your question?
It does. When was this plan written and approved by FEMA?
I would have to go to the approval. It was not written by FEMA. It was written by us.
Approved by them, what
Yeah.
you submitted.
Yeah. The approval, the FEMA approval to the county was received by me on April 10th, 2018. Okay, so we're in set. We're not out of phase. We're doing what we need to do. I just want to ensure that you understand what the plan is. And if you choose to adopt it, that's your choice. If you choose not to adopt it, that's your choice as elected officials. Did that answer your question?
It does answer my questions. I've gone through the summary, and I understand all of your concerns, and it's a very good plan. The thing that worries me more, if I may, Mr. Mayor, is our concern during the flood seasons of all of these bodies that get flooded and they come over here, a problem that starts in Mexico and we land up with a problem over here. Is that part of the mitigation plan there too?
There's if you can hold on that, I'll go into the risk matrices in just a minute, and I can answer that specifically, and that is one of the things that's been identified as one of the major risks.
Yeah, because I understand what Mr. Sayers is trying to do there, and I think we're all into it. I just need the recommendation from the fire chief, to tell you the truth. If he says it's okay, it's okay with me. I just have these questions. That's all. We don't need to go all on. I just need his recommendation, and then I just have backup questions, and that's it. And that's why we have professionals to help us.
That's right.
I just have some questions that
But-
regular John Doe
Your choice,
asks.
sir. Would you like me to continue
But
to
I would like you
characterize
to
the plan, or what?
kind of explain the plan a little for the rest of the council.
Okay. So the first step is to convene the planning process. And as I said, let's go widespread within the community. So Rio Rico Fire District, Arizona Department of Emergency Management, Arizona State University, hydrologists, Santa Cruz County, Rio Rico Fire, City of Nogales, J.E. Fuller Hydrology, there's scientists, Tubec, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So this whole team comes together, and then we put requests out for public input for the planning process. And it's very important within the planning process that we're all incorporated, because we want to, this is the very first step. Let's not miss something. In emergency management, we have a saying, if you don't know about it, it doesn't exist. So some single individual in the room may know about a hazard that none of us else know about, and it's important that we quantify that and bring that into the plan. Understand? So there's a broad planning process that it goes, and we have many meetings, and they're scheduled, and there's a lot of things that occur within these planning processes. And thank you to the City of Nogales, very active. Your fire chief was there, police chief was represented, Juan Guerra was there, lots of folks from the City of Nogales and across the board. So we bring this team together, and we kind of begin the process. So then what are the risks? So we start with a really wide set of risks that FEMA puts out potentially that we can face. Earthquakes, volcanoes, tsunamis, hurricanes, flooding, wildfire, etc. And so this team then begins to narrow down that risk set, because we're not going to spend a lot of time on volcano mitigation here, because we're probably not going to see them. So we narrow the list down, and then we take a look. What has happened within the community? What declared events have happened? We don't want to miss anything. Have there been flooding? Have there been wildfire declared events? Those sorts of things are researched by the scientists putting this plan together. So we narrow the list down, and then we come up with a subset of things that we think this community, as the entire community, needs to be concerned with. And our subset consists of dam failure, drought, flood, hazardous materials, and wildfire. That's our subset. So what we're saying is we don't want to spend a lot of staff time preparing for the tsunami event, because it's probably not going to occur here. Let's spend our effort and time working for things that are predictable that are here. Go ahead.
I kind of just wanted to make sure that in that list of hazardous material, does that include maybe an act of terrorism?
Yes.
That would maybe with one of the tankers or something like that might have chemicals and blows up and presented under certain conditions, whether it mixes with water or something, that'll create a bigger problem.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And terrorism is something that we talk about as the team. That's an intentional act, whether it's terrorism or not, intentional versus accidental. So from there, we have that subset, and then we kind of dive in a little bit deeper into that subset. Let's pick hazardous materials, for example, because you brought it up. What is the hazardous materials being transported through the City of Nogales and through the county? And so we go to the science. Where are the trucks coming from? Where are they being transported? What's coming down the rail line, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we're not going to spend a lot of time on nitric acid if we don't have nitric acid coming into our community. But we've identified we have a lot of propane coming through our community. We have a lot of sulfuric acid and some other stuff. So that begins to build these risk factors. So let's take sulfuric acid, for example. Within our planning group, how does it react? What's the chemistry of that? If it spills on the ground, what's its dispersion rate? Does it create gas? Does it interact with water? What's going to happen with that? Okay, so there's the chemistry of it, and then there's the well, what's the impact? What populations are close? What is the terrain? How will that funnel through the terrain? And that comes into a very complex kind of model within the risk management, within this model. So we ended up having scoring. Catastrophic level, high level, moderate level, low level, and that all links to property damage, loss of life. It goes into this matrix, if you will, right? That then ranks the hazards in terms of priority. And so what we're looking for is the top 3 hazards within our community that are most probable to occur, that we're going to continue to do our training and planning effort for. And what do you think those 3 hazards are? Flooding, hazardous materials, and wildfire. So that's the whole risk scoring part of the risk assessment part of the thing. So now, what do we do about that? We've identified this risk of flooding. What do we do? So that goes to the last section of the manual, and that's the mitigation strategy. And for there, our committee sets goals. There's lots of different goals. And so one of the goals is to build capacity within the community to be more resilient. That's a good goal. How do we do that? We improve warning systems. So I move from this, and I point back to this, and that's part of the reasons that we have a comprehensive wireless emergency notification system for the county that people can opt into. And that's part of the reason that we can tap into what's called IPAWS, Integrated Public Alert and Warning. You would know this as Amber Alerts and the crawlers on the TVs. So those systems are in place as a result of identifying something within this plan that we think that we need here within the community. And then we develop programs. Let's switch to flooding, for example. Right? Flooding was identified as one of our big risks. Well, okay, we're going to have flooding. What is the population at risk? Where is it? What are the impacts going to be? What are, et cetera, et cetera. We all know about the IOI. So that ends up driving supplemental plans. This is the Nogales Wash Emergency Response Plan. Because we've identified it as a risk, now we have a supplemental plan and exercises specific for the Nogales Wash Emergency Plan. So this allows me to go to EPA Region 9 and say, I need help writing this plan. Can you help fund it? Yes, we can. $10,000, bingo. We do the work, we submit it, and here we come up with a world-class Nogales Wash Emergency Response Plan. And you see it's all color-coded here. Right? So perhaps public alert and warning or resilience is something else. We've identified it in the plan. So we want to start that. So within the plan, hey, we need to work on resiliency of the public so that they're prepared for a disaster. We think that that's one of our risks. And if we do that, they're going to be better at flooding or hazardous materials or any of the hazards that we do. So that drives literature like this that we can distribute to the public. And we have plenty of these, and I'll give them to Mike as well, the chief. And so this preparedness guide, now we have thousands of these, we can distribute to the community, and it talks about what do you do in the case of a fire, what do you do in the hazmat, what do you do in the flood, what about a go kit, what kind of things do you need to pack, what's your communication plan, that sort of stuff. So I think the point is, we've come together with a committee, we've identified the risks and hazards within the community. We've done a matrix to figure out what we're probably going to see and then we develop mitigation strategies to mitigate or lower that loss within the community. So within the mitigation section, we look at things that had been done in 2011. Do we want to keep that? Do we want to throw it away? Is it complete? You know, what do we need to do with what we decided we wanted to do in 2011? So then we do an update on that. And some stuff we deleted. We threw it away. Some things we revised, and some things are ongoing within the plan cycle. So lots of stuff within the mitigation strategy. Develop a flood control district records database. Keep it in there. Keep it in there. Develop a drainage master plan. Develop a drought mitigation plan. Develop, implement policies and procedures to limit increased flooding potential that occurs with moderate to severe wildland fires. I mean, all this sort of stuff is in there. Develop a FireWise program for the community. That's some of the stuff we continue to work forward. Can we reduce the fuels surrounding our jurisdiction so when we do have a wildfire, it runs out of fuel and we don't have the issue? Something you guys have been doing. Can we clear the washes before flood season so that we, you know, get the water out of here? I mean, it's within the mitigation strategy. It's something that we're doing all the time. So basically that's the plan. It drives a lot of other things. We have a local emergency planning committee that meets quarterly. You are more than welcome to come to it. Mayor, you were there several times. But we'll look at the mitigation plan. Annually, we will present the mitigation plan to the local emergency planning committee, and we'll go, hey, are we missing anything? Is there something new we ought to do? Do we need to do a tweak or an update on this? Because that's the people that know what's going on within the community. So here's a current strategy that is listed as high. Continue tracking all hazardous material spills. Continue with our 3-year hazardous materials training plan, and continue quarterly LAPC meetings, and we're doing that. So if you come to an LAPC meeting, we're always going to have some sort of a training related to a risk that, or capability that's linked back to the hazard mitigation plan. So maybe I will do a 30-minute overview on wireless information for emergency responders. Or maybe we'll talk about swift water rescue. The one that's coming up, we found out that we have some areas that can potentially have to land a medical helicopter before fire EMS gets there. We've determined that, so we're going to provide training, and we're talking about Mount Hawkins, right? They can potentially have something, so that will be presented at the LAPC, and that's all tracks back to the hazard mitigation plan. So, wrapping it up, that's what it's all about. It does an annual review by the LAPC. It's a verified, approved plan by FEMA and Arizona Division of Emergency Management, and it's adopted by the county. It's adopted by Town of Patagonia, and tonight I'm hoping that you guys will, you know, as an elected body, adopt the plan as the strategy, as the mitigation plan for us. And again, a lot swings with the chief. He was part of our planning committee. And chief, do you have any comments at all?
Just Mayor and members of council, I recommend as the chief that you adopt the plan as is. That is my recommendation.
And just to, oh, okay, go ahead, Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I was going to ask, you mentioned that it's an ongoing plan. Anytime there's changes currently during this year or the following future years, will you notify us of those changes?
Absolutely. What on a comprehensive rewrite, we get the planning committee pulled together. But as the writer of this document, something new can occur within the county or your jurisdiction, and I would know about that. someone's opened a pharmaceutical manufacturing business.
Mhm.
Well, that could be of interest to us because of the precursor chemicals. The chief would probably tell me, hey, we have this manufacturing business, these precursor chemicals are here. Hey, we ought to think about the impacts to this community. Do we need to do an amendment? We can do that quickly, and we just do an amendment and send it in. It goes to FEMA because it's a live, living document. Right? It's not something that just goes on the shelf. We work on this all the time. If that answers your question.
It does. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Anybody else? Go ahead.
I noticed that you have an entry there on page 40 on climate change. How is it that we're dealing with climate change and the federal government pulls out of the Peace Accord? Paris Accord.
Nothing to do with this plan. This is the climate change component was produced by scientists that were part of the planning committee and verified scientific documents. Nothing to do with policy. I mean, if they want to pull out of it, they pull out of it.
But if they pull out of it, that means they don't believe in it, and it's a federal government, and then we're saying here, I'm in accord with what you have here, but I just don't understand how you're running this.
I have no control over that, sir. I mean, it's the scientists are part of our thing, and it's part of the requirement that a climate change component be involved in this, and that's a FEMA requirement.
So that would be like a local policy, right? Is that what you're saying?
I don't know, because according to the chief executive, there's no such a thing as climate change, but here, there is a thing as climate change. I concur that there is a thing as climate change scientifically. I just find that your scientists should probably take a trip over there to Pennsylvania Avenue there and speak with him about climate change. Send your scientists over there.
Well, I'm looking at page 41. There's a reference on May 2014. The GRCP released the third National Climate Change Assessment with compilation and so for the science of topic change, and here's the components. So it's reference to a federal research agency in article.
That's my point.
There it is.
Everybody is saying, including the federal government, that it is accurate, except for the person on Pennsylvania Avenue that says it is inaccurate. I'm just trying for you to bring clarity to it, but I don't think you can.
I cannot, sir.
Okay.
I cannot.
That's good.
This is a scientific plan.
And well thought out scientific.
Thank you.
Anybody else with a question?
No, Mayor, I have a comment. I think that this, I accept the recommendations of the fire chief, and I think the police chief is recommending it also, because I noticed that you were part of this.
Yes.
Yes, what, chief?
Yes, sir. I recommend that we adopt that.
Okay, I think it's good. Now, can you answer my question about the flooding from Mexico?
I'll have to go to that section and see what's in there, and pardon me because I don't know every single page.
You know, it's funny that you asked us for those fire trucks to go fight fires up. And right here it says that from 1973 to August 2016, wildfires, they had 18 events for $6 million. Is that accurate? Because doesn't that include 2016, include the Yarnell fire?
Is that data is just for the Santa Cruz County?
Correct.
And again, so I would think that those are going to be the big ticket fires that were declared emergencies only for Santa Cruz County.
Yeah, it does say that state and federal declared hazardous events that included Santa Cruz. That included Santa Cruz County. I don't know if that means primary to Santa Cruz County or not, but if it is Santa Cruz County, then there's not that many wildfires here for $6 million.
Well, those would be the big declared wildfires. The little wildfires that we handle at a lower level may not make it to that list.
So how many of those are there that we're going to buy 2 trucks?
I'd have to get that information from you, but mean, brush fires within the city are you know, several a month, and they're just handled at a very low level. So, in the NIMS, there's 5 types of incidents. The type 1 is the largest, biggest incident. We had that last year. That was a sawmill fire. And then there's the type 2. Well, type 3 is where it really starts to get taken off with federal government and declaring disaster and getting all these things involved. And probably what you're looking at is some of the data on a type 3 and above incident. The type 4 and the type 5 incidences are the ones that we handle either on our own or with a little help from Rio Rico, a little help from TUBAC, and we just take care of them at a lower level. And that data would be more in our own, you know, I give you the call response data in your monthly report.
Right.
And it's got the fire numbers and those types of things. That'd be our own internal data. But what you're looking at there are the big ticket fires that have occurred, that have at least made the list that they use.
Maybe you can highlight that on your report so I can get a grasp of what's happening here. Because I'm looking at the big picture here, and the big picture isn't matching in with what we're funding. But maybe I need to see that a little bit more of the data over 6 months of that, for that, if you would. Because the better that you educate me, the better I can understand your issues.
For all of us.
Okay. Is that, are you done, Dr. Lewis?
Yes, I am, Mayor.
Anybody else?
No, my question.
Okay, Councilman Maldonado.
Between both chiefs, after implementing all this, is there some training that we got to give city, workers and stuff like that it has to be implemented with the program?
That's an excellent question, sir. And let's just go right to the hazardous material side. And
personally, I told the mayor this was something new for me. I'm a new councilman and stuff like that. I didn't know it existed.
Oh.
But that's why I made the.
Certainly, I mean, we're in flood season right now, so flooding is identified as one of the risks. There's some historical stuff here on page 64 about floods in the Nogales Wash and rainfall in Mexico, that sort of stuff. But what does that, I mean, it's common sense, but that drives us to clear washes, that clears us to do swift water rescue training, which you've just completed and the county have just completed. And then we bring our partners, U.S. Border Patrol comes in as well because they're force multipliers, and they come in with us on swift water rescue training. For us within emergency management, I don't know that we're going to get it, but we've asked for a special grant for a targeted drone that will carry a life vest, because we do have people that are stranded in the river, and we can actually take a life vest or a supplemental line. Again, I don't know if it's going to be funded. It's a grant request that we have right now. So yeah, it begins to drive different stuff. So within hazardous materials, that drives our 3-year training plan. So we'll make sure that we do wiser, we make sure we decontamination, we'll actually go into the Nogales Wash, not this time of year, but we'll do air monitoring down in the wash to make sure that we have trace hazardous materials, where we're with Border Patrol. We do a lot of different stuff on that. So hopefully that answers your question. There's nothing specific on training or certification. It's more of a general thing. Let's spend, the concept is, if I may, let's spend our training time on what we're probably going to see here that's going to impact our community most in the worst way, and let's make sure that we're ready for that. And let's not spend our time working on volcano preparedness.
Yes,
you know what I mean? So let's.
You got to adapt to the zone.
Yeah, let's be smart with what we do. On the whole. That's all I had for you, Mayor, unless you had anything.
Well, I got one more, just out of curiosity, just maybe an update on it. I know that at one time, we've spoken to Union Pacific officials to get more involved because they had their own program, especially with hazardous materials. And even so, because we've had some occurrences in the past with a railroad car overturning and making sure that everybody worked together. Are they still on board with us?
Absolutely. We work quite a bit with Union Pacific Railroad. 2 years ago and the year before, they brought in the safety training here. We're talking a $13 million training, and it was done here in Nogales. First time in history It's been done 2 times in the single community. So that was awesome, and then they ended up paying for meals for everybody. But they brought in not only the train and the training car, they gave handbooks out to everybody, and they brought in all the valves that we could potentially see. So all of our providers know an A side from a B side of a train, and where the handbrake is, and how the couplers work, and how the bungs work, and we can identify just by looking at a car whether it's a pressurized vessel or a low pressure. So all of our responders do that. So Union Pacific continues to work with us quite a bit. As you know, there was a derailment in Tucson 2 days ago. That appears to be related to a road erosion issue rather than a track issue, but the train's coming along and it derailed the curve at that point in time. But yeah, we do work a lot with them. We're on a first name basis with Damien Guy and all the other people, and his phone number is in my belt right here, so I can call him at 2 in the morning, and they take things seriously with UP.
And the other question, go ahead, Vice Mayor.
Just to follow through with that derailment, don't they have inspections continuously on that? How did that happen? Is it just a fluke? And we haven't received that many rains or anything of that sort.
Yeah, that's a good question. Living in this community, you're going to see a pickup truck at least twice a day going down the rail line, and they have sensors on that truck, so they're looking for rail brakes, they're looking for different things, they're looking for a lot of stuff. So that's just hands on deck every day, every single day that occurs. And so if there's a rail break or a fault or something, that truck will detect it immediately. So as he's going through, you'll see he has a book, and it has every sign, railroad sign, and he'll go, whoa, that sign's been stolen by some kid, and then he'll put a work order in to have the sign repaired. And then periodically, about every, I don't know what their schedule is, it really depends on the use of the track, but you've probably seen some very scientific equipment that comes in that provides x-ray scanning and infrastructure analysis of what the track structure is all about. So that comes in, it's all recorded, it's all telemetry, and I know it's telemetry because they have very, very powerful Wi-Fi, and that goes right back to the train control center in Omaha. So all that data is compiled all the time. So then, it's Union Pacific, they do what they need to do. And you'll see track replacement, we've seen that, we've seen guardrail replacement, we've seen different stuff. I called them last year, I saw a bridge with what I thought was a structural crack in it. It was in a surface crack, but I called the Union Pacific Center and said, I'm here, and here's what I see. And within 45 minutes, I had somebody there from Tucson, Union Pacific. So they came both on the track from Nogales and Tucson, and also through Interstate 19, saying, show me what you see. That's what I see. Oh, okay, we've got that recorded. So they're pretty squared away.
That was going to be my follow-up question. Do you have a very well established, it seems like you do communication with them?
Absolutely.
Do they inform you immediately if they see anything wrong? Is there any need for that, or you're not part of that communication?
It's usually the other way around. I will call, if we have a flooding event, I'll be down here on Grand Avenue and I'll be checking, and I'll go, whoa, wait a minute. And I will call the control center and say, in such and such a crossing, here's what I'm seeing right here. And they're usually on top of it. But we have also, to answer your question, we also have a statewide situational awareness report. So when the derailment occurred, it goes to all the emergency managers. We all get an alert right away, and then we have a kind of a secret squirrel place that we go to that we can see the pictures, and we can see, it's called WebEOC, but we can see real-time intelligence into what's going on and the impact within the community. So I knew within probably 20 minutes that there was some event that occurred in Tucson, and then Union Pacific, as partners, were able to post a manifest on that, and we knew what hazardous materials were or were not, because we have to make decisions quickly. Do we evacuate? What do we do? So
And to follow
Thank
up a
you.
little on that, we also have a number here with the mayor's office and the city manager's office on a direct line to Dallas with this part of the region as far as if something is going on or we have any questions, we can call to, is it the regional vice president? And he'll get back to us within minutes as far as.
I mean, we still all have the responsibility to watch, and I watch all the time. And those train cars go by in my house, and I'll take a look. And you know, one civilian, I think it was a year ago, called me right away, sent me a picture. I saw this on a rail line. I think it's an explosive device, and I don't know what it is. And you know, thank you very much. You got that up to Union Pacific, and it was a train monitoring device that they strapped onto a car for sensing vibration or something or other. But they thanked me for being on the lookout for them. So we ended up taking that picture to the local emergency planning committee. Hey, you guys, if you ever see this, this is what it is. It's not an explosive device strapped to the piece of paper.
I just wanted to see if you could shed a little more light on that training that Union Pacific put on here a couple of years back, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
As far as that, it was, most of the brunt of the cost was carried by them, I believe.
100%, sir.
And they not only trained our local folks here, but the invitation went to our counterparts in Mexico, from all around Hermosillo to the smaller towns, the Caraborca, Guapieta, all the areas, especially the ones closer to the border. A lot of them attended those trainings, I believe, and especially our local crowd really benefited. The firefighters from across the border, which work on a volunteer basis, they really appreciated all the free training they got. I'll just throw the word in because sometimes the government doesn't give them that type of training, and especially working together with Union Pacific, which is also, I think Federal Mex was involved to a certain degree, or at least it opened up better doors or communication lines with Federal Mex on their side.
Yes, sir. We're still working through the Border 2020 Hazardous Materials Training Group to get the whole train moved down to Hermosillo. Union Pacific's call on that, but we understand that there would be thousands of firefighters coming on that. So it would be, I think we're still working on that.
Good. And again, I think we went to recently to that Naleo conference, and they had a session about emergency service like this, and really I went to it and tuned in, and I realized that a lot of the communities aren't prepared at all. I don't know, I think a lot of them are behind the FEMA I guess specifications or whatever, but a lot of them are really just barely getting off the ground. I think here in Arizona, right here in Nogales, I should say, I think even I as mayor I'm just a little bit involved, have more knowledge than a lot of these folks that are giving the classes on some of these other areas. So
we're working hard, Mr. Mayor, and our local emergency planning committee has been recognized as one of the top in the United States.
I believe that.
I was asked to go lecture in last year in Denver, Colorado. And they go, what are you guys doing down there? What are you doing? Why are you so successful? And I'm like, because we treat everybody with respect, and we employ the whole community, and everybody's got something in it. I mean, you mean you're not doing that? But you know, we're recognized as one of the top in the nation, for sure. So
and that's
we'll
what I
continue
noticed,
on.
the involvement, the participation level of how many folks get involved from all different emergency service and law enforcement, that, and you know, y'all work together in such a way that it's amazing, and it's great because those efforts are the ones that save lives in the long run, and really keep the cost down of anything going up in flames or flooding or whatever it is. That's very important that everybody be on the same page, and I guess you guys are are leading the nation in that. So thank you
Well,
very much for
Thank you
your.
so much for being patient with us, and I guess we've got recommendations from the fire chief and police chief that be adopted, and,
Mr.
Thank you.
Cyrus, can I have the answer to my question?
the Mexico?
Yes.
It is, I was looking at it, sir, it was detailed in Mexico, there is on flooding, it was detailed. In July 2008, Nogales wash emergency was declared. Heavy rainfall on the Mexican side of the border caused flash flooding in the city of Nogales, Arizona. It was caused by a damaged portion of the underground Nogales wash. Local emergency management reported water burst of the underground wash into the surface along the international border. The border wall acted as a dam, keeping most of the flooding on the Mexican side. However, some water did flow through the port of entry. Several businesses in downtown experienced flooding. Illegal immigrants found 2 days later in the underground tunnel. So some of what you're talking about is included in there.
That's part of the flood control district that they're saying that they can resolve that problem. And they still haven't come over here to give us a concrete how much it's going to cost. There's a problem that happened in 2008 that can be repeated again because we have not working with the flood control district to get them to put the money to correct that problem there, Mayor. That's why I wanted to highlight this. They told us that they can correct it. It can't be corrected unless there's a wall built there. Then that brings flooding out of proportion into Mexico. So, but we need to do something about that. And maybe Mr. Felix, Dr. Felix, you can do something to get us together so we can address that issue. They've come here to tell us, but we don't do anything. We just, I don't know if we're waiting for another flood like that to happen and lives taken before we act, but we need to act now. Thank you.
Thank you again, Ray. That was an excellent presentation. And I believe you have a lot of also communication with the county flood district here locally.
Absolutely, sir.
Maybe we'll get it together here in the near future, very near future.
Hopefully.
Thank you so much.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you very much for your recommendations and making it easier for us to continue supporting. I guess that was about it then. Anything else for the presentation? With that, we'll go ahead and adjourn. Thank you.
I don't know why, but it's like there's a timer, I'm reading something, and it just turns off. Just me. To the end. You know, like if I'm reading the agenda, I was reading some minutes here, and it turns off, it goes back to this screen. And I've never had that before. So I lose track of everything. Hour. There's pizza. I got one in here.
Oh, did you? Oh, what is it?
Oh, is that what it was? Okay.
You know, you got to suspect.
Thank you.
It's easier just to send you a text. Thank you, eh?
Bueno, aquí que estás aquí
Ya
go
no
to his,
voy a ir a comer pizza.
it's like frozen and
There, how you doing?
very refreshing.
Le pido otro, mejor.
Nunca lo uso.
Find yourself. Get my letter.
Yes, sir.
Mayor, how are you?
Good, Greg. Almost got
There's pizza over there.
the final question, Dr. Lagona.
Sí,
No, you got Greg, he almost caught the final question.
Oh, yeah. I kind of got it, but I had to go to the bathroom.
the full agenda. Ok, luego lo... Y luego para ponerle en
El reader. Ya lo tener.
So once it's all down, what did I do?
You just hit right here, go agenda, and it'll pop up.
Está bueno.
I'm gonna go stop this meeting.
Ándale, está bueno, thank you.